When thinking about the next 20 years, I must make a comment about the field that's occupied most of my career, which is the field of strategy. Strategy has its origins in the military. The word is Greek in origin. Napoleon's genius for repetitive battlefield victory, especially against the Prussians, led von Clausewitz to write his seminal work on war, which has formed the basis in business and in other life of understanding and using the idea of strategy. It's a very simple idea. The idea is you must have a vision, you must be organized, and your energy must flow to deal with the problems that are in front of you. In recent times, I've been attracted to the notion of grand strategy, which also has its origins in military theory and international relations. Grand strategy is a comprehensive approach to understanding all the elements that shape an environment, and therefore the choices that leaders can or can't make in terms of their goals and objectives. The school of structural realism says that actors are in a set of power relations, and although they have choices, they must understand their constraints. And in this way, at the moment, South Africa is adrift. By and large, I would like to suggest that South Africa has failed or been unable to develop a grand strategy. We definitely have projects, frameworks, plans, and policies, but we do not yet have a comprehensive, agreed, or actionable worldview that allows us to understand and share a consensus at leadership level of how the South African political economy seeks to compete, shape itself, and transform in the future. This is because, in many ways, our history dominates our thinking, and there's an absence of a believable view as to what the future must and could look like. The idea of a frontier in academic circles originated in the United States as it expanded westwards. The leading scholar of frontier theory was Jackson Turner, who was the first scholar to seek to conceptualize in a serious way what a frontier is. According to Jackson Turner, a frontier is an open space that is contested. At the far extreme of frontiers is a stable and well-established order. At the other extreme is openness, conflict, friction, and opportunity. Simply put, there are three modalities. To translate them into a metaphor or an image, in the frontier world, in which I'm going to suggest South Africa is, there is a fort where people protect their interests, there is a farm in which people exploit opportunities, and there is an open felt of untouched possibilities. In terms of who occupies a frontier, there might be 5 kinds of human interaction. Explorers are those who go first. We name the mountains after the ones that come back. They are followed by pioneers who move in and out of the frontier. Then settlers who in the frontier schema settle where they are but don't originally come from there. Then there are citizens. Citizens are permanent, authentic, and fully belong where they are. In Afrikaans, we call them genuine. The final category in a frontier are colonists who are exploiting the situation but may never truly belong. In terms of strategic archetypes, there is entry and extraction, long-term accumulation, and as importantly as the frontier closes and settles, long-term commitment. I ask you to reflect whether we are in a frontier and whether we are frontier people in our thinking and action, and where each of us fit in to that schema. Given the longer view of history, we've been a democracy for a blink of the Buddha's eye. Democracy is no easy mistress, and balancing out competing interests and meeting expectations is extraordinarily challenging for any state. And in my view, the frontier for South Africa in terms of interests and expectations and opportunities is open and definitely not closed. Because of its geophysical nature, our multiple cultures and diversity, our location in the world economy, and the strength of our institutions, we are, in my view, a classic frontier society. In a frontier society, there are 2 critical strategic capabilities that you may reflect on for yourself and the institutions in which you work. The first is agility, and the second is hybridity. Agility is the ability to respond quickly to as opportunities shift, and hybridity is the capacity to adapt to any environment within the frontier. A simple analysis of South Africa says, without doubt, we have hybridity. As do many countries in transition, there is a tension of the past which speaks to the hope of the future. And the cultural and socio-economic complexity, not to mention the geographic diversity, is enormously important. Is Cape Town part of South Africa? We are a nation of extreme diversity that requires agility and hybridity. In addition to hybridity, we need dynamism and agility. Dynamism comes from an energetic understanding of what is possible and the institutional capacity to take advantage of it. Agility speaks to reshaping the agenda as the conditions change. For example, once in its history, South Africa was a halfway house to Asia, then a shipping route for oil tankers, and may in the next 50 years be the services and financial hub for economic development of the entire African continent. The agility to take advantage of this is what is required in a frontier space. Looking now quickly to the next 20 years and our possibilities, I'd like to make two central observations. Firstly, South Africa is very fortunate to have 6 strengths, or in modern terms, killer apps. The first is we are a constitutional democracy. The second is we have an excellent but uneven infrastructure for an emerging economy of our size. Thirdly, we have a strong and vital private sector. Fourthly, there are 1 billion people north of us who haven't touched or used services that we took for granted before breakfast, at least a large portion of them. Fifthly, we are in an excellent time zone and a great geographical location. And lastly, a human quality. We are highly resilient, and adaptive. Unfortunately, we have 4 major challenges. They include, as we've heard this morning, grinding, unending poverty, not 10 kilometers from where we sit. Structural unemployment that the education system is simply not overcoming. And a growing inequality, which is remarkable given that we're a democracy. And at present, a staggeringly important, strategically damaging, low rate of economic growth. As I've suggested, the South African nation state is a long way from maturity. It should be clear to us that the long march to achieving our potential will be a multi-generational phenomenon. That is why it's worth looking 20 years or more ahead, because at times it's easy to be impatient, and at other times we may be too patient.